The massive crystal chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with alien voices. Hundreds of different species filled the seats, their forms ranging from towering reptiles to floating balls of light. The air smelled strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim sat in the small human section, feeling very small. His black suit looked plain next to the colorful robes and armor worn by other delegates. Next to him, Ji-Hai Park checked her data tablet one more time. The numbers on the screen had not changed, but she hoped somehow they would look better. "The humans request to speak," announced the council leader. His name was Kelleth, and he looked like a giant lizard wearing golden armor. His voice boomed across the chamber, making the crystal walls vibrate. Hyunwoo stood up slowly. His legs felt weak, but he walked to the center of the room. Above him, a holographic display showed Earth, a small blue planet that looked tiny compared to the massive worlds around it. "Honored Council," Hyunwoo began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "Earth requests membership in the Galactic Defense Pact. We know the Devourer fleet approaches our galaxy. We want to help defend against this threat." A sound like laughter filled the chamber, but it came from creatures that looked nothing like humans. The Vorthak made deep rumbling sounds. The Luminari, beings made of pure energy, flickered in patterns that somehow seemed mocking. Even the insect-like hive queens clicked their mandibles in what could only be amusement. "Show us your military strength, little human," Kelleth said. His yellow eyes gleamed with what looked like humor. Ji-Hai pressed a button on her tablet. The holographic display changed to show Earth's military report. The numbers appeared in bright blue text, floating in the air for all to see. "Earth's total active military personnel, 2.5 million across all branches," Ji-Hai read aloud. "Navy, Army, Air Force, and Space Force combined." The laughter grew louder. A Vorthak general named Scarth stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the human delegation. 2.5 million? He roared. "My smallest battle group has more warriors than your entire planet." "The Vorthak Empire fields 500 million active soldiers," announced another delegate. "Our reserve forces number in the billions." A luminary being spoke next, its voice sounding like singing crystals. "The collective maintains 1.2 billion energy constructs ready for combat. Each one can destroy a city." More voices joined in, each species bragging about their military might. The numbers kept getting bigger and bigger. 800 million here, 2 billion there. Some species had armies so large they measured them in trillions. Hyunwoo felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. Earth's 2.5 million soldiers suddenly seemed like nothing at all. "Perhaps," said a voice from high above, "the humans do not understand the scale of the threat we face." The speaker was the queen of the Hive Mind Collective. Her body looked like a giant praying mantis crossed with a spider, but her voice was surprisingly gentle. "The Devourer fleet has consumed 12 entire galaxies. Their bioships number in the hundreds of millions. Each ship is the size of your largest cities." The chamber fell quiet as she continued. "When the Devourers arrive, they will send wave after wave of creatures designed only to eat and reproduce. They will not negotiate. They will not retreat. They will consume every living thing in their path until nothing remains but empty space." Hyunwoo swallowed hard. "We understand the danger, Your Majesty. That is exactly why Earth wants to help. We may be small, but we are determined to fight." "Determination is admirable," Kelleth said, his voice now sounding almost kind. "But this is not a battle for brave hearts and noble intentions. This is mathematics. This is about numbers. He pressed a control on his chair, and the display changed again. Now it showed the approaching Devourer fleet, a dark cloud of bioships, stretching across space like a disease. Intelligence estimates place their vanguard at 50,000 vessels, Kelleth continued. Behind them, millions more. Your entire human military could not crew even 1% of our defensive fleet. Besides, added General Scarth, what could humans possibly offer that we do not already have? Your technology is primitive. Your weapons are weak. Your ships are slow. Jihai tried to speak up. Sir, if you look at our efficiency ratings, efficiency means nothing when facing extinction, interrupted a luminary delegate. We need raw power. We need numbers that can match the swarm. The vote came quickly after that. Each species cast their decision into the central crystal, which glowed different colors depending on the choice. Red meant yes to human membership. Blue meant no. The crystal stayed blue, completely, solidly blue. The motion fails, Kelleth announced. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Defense Pact. Hyunwoo felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. But sir, if we all work together— Little human, Kelleth said, and now his voice held no kindness at all. We have fleets that stretch from star to star. We have weapons that can crack planets in half. We have soldiers bred specifically for war, trained from birth to fight and die for their species. He leaned forward in his massive chair. What do you have? A handful of military bases, some orbital platforms, a few thousand ships that would not survive 5 minutes against a real battle fleet? The decision is final, announced the Queen of the Hive Mind. Earth will not be included in the galactic defense grid. Your systems will not receive reinforcements or supply drops. When the Devourers come, humanity will face them alone. But that is not a death sentence, added a luminary being trying to sound comforting. Simply evacuate your important people to the galactic core. Find work in our colonies. Your species can survive as refugees. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring down at him. Some looked sorry. Others looked bored. A few still seemed amused by the whole thing. No, he said quietly. Excuse me? Kelleth asked. No, Hyunwoo repeated, louder this time. Humanity will not abandon Earth. We will not run and hide while monsters destroy our home. Then you will die uselessly, General Scarth said, and your sacrifice will mean nothing because your tiny army cannot even slow down the Devourer advance. Maybe, Hyunwoo admitted, but we will die fighting. He turned and walked back toward the exit, Jihai following close behind. As they reached the door, Hyunwoo stopped and looked back at the assembled delegates. You are right about one thing, he said. This is about numbers. But I think you might be counting wrong. The chamber erupted in confused chittering and clicking as the two humans left. Behind them, the Galactic Council began planning their defense without Earth's tiny army to slow them down. None of them noticed Jihai's small smile as the doors closed behind them. The Seoul Command Center sat deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. Admiral Tae-Jin Lee stood before a massive screen that showed Earth from space. Red dots marked every military installation, naval base, and command post. Across the planet! They laughed at us, he said to the room full of officers. The Galactic Council thinks our 2.5 million active soldiers are a joke. General So Young Choi leaned back in her chair, a grim smile on her face. Maybe they should have asked different questions. Around the table sat the leaders of every major military force on Earth. Korean generals mixed with American admirals, Russian colonels, and Chinese air marshals. For the first time in decades, every nation had set aside their differences to face a common enemy. "Report," Admiral Lee said simply. Colonel Dong-hyuk Nam stood up and activated his holographic display. Numbers began floating in the air. But these numbers were very different from what the Galactic Council had seen. Active military personnel, 2.5 million, as reported, he began. However, reserve forces total 12 million trained soldiers who can be called up within 48 hours. The display changed, showing new numbers. Veteran population with combat experience, 500 million across all member nations. These include former soldiers, retired officers, and discharged personnel who maintain their training. "Keep going," Admiral Lee said quietly. "Civilian population with mandatory military service, 8.2 billion. Every person between ages 18 and 65 has completed at least 2 years of basic military training." General So Young stood up. "Show them the real numbers, Dong-hyuk." The hologram shifted again. This time it showed every continent on Earth, with tiny lights representing people. As they watched, the lights changed color, from white to red, to indicate military capability. Total human population, 50 billion across Earth, Luna, Mars, and the outer colonies. Of these, 45 billion have received some form of military training. 30 billion are considered combat-ready with less than 1 week of refresher courses. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Min-ho Jang, the director of human resources, cleared his throat. "Gentlemen and ladies, Project Everyman has been running for 40 years. Every human settlement, no matter how small, has been quietly militarized." He pressed a button, and the display zoomed in on what looked like a peaceful farming community on Mars. "This agricultural dome on Mars grows food for 50,000 colonists," he explained. "It also contains hidden weapon depots, communications equipment, and training facilities. The farmers are all former military personnel. Their children learn tactics alongside mathematics." The image changed to show a school on Luna. This elementary school teaches 2,000 students. The playground equipment doubles as obstacle courses. The cafeteria can be converted into a command center in 20 minutes. Every teacher is trained in combat medicine and small unit tactics. Admiral Lee nodded slowly. "Continue the briefing." "Every civilian transport ship has hidden weapon mounts," Min-ho went on. "Every commercial space station can serve as a military base. Every factory can produce military equipment within days of receiving the order." He paused, looking around the room. "We do not have a small army, ladies and gentlemen. We have the largest army in galactic history. It just happens to have other jobs during peacetime." General So Young activated another display. This one showed training statistics. Average human civilian, 500 hours of combat training, 200 hours of tactical instruction, 100 hours of weapons maintenance. Compare this to the average Vorthak soldier. 2,000 hours of combat training, 50 hours of tactics, 0 hours of independent thinking. "What does that mean?" asked a younger officer. "It means," So Young replied, "that while their soldiers are better at following orders, ours are better at making decisions. When communication breaks down, when plans fall apart, when everything goes wrong, our civilians will still know what to do." Colonel Nam pulled up another chart. "Intelligence reports on galactic military doctrine show consistent patterns. Large formations, centralized command, overwhelming force applied to single points." "And our doctrine?" Admiral Lee asked, though he already knew the answer. "Small unit independence, distributed command structure, multiple redundant systems." If they cut off the head, the body keeps fighting. If they destroy one unit, 10 more appear to take its place. The display changed to show a map of the solar system. Every asteroid belt, moon, and orbital station was marked with defense installations. The Galactic Council sees 2.5 million soldiers, said General So Young. They do not see 50 billion people, who have been preparing for this fight their entire lives. Minho activated one final display. This one showed production numbers that made everyone in the room sit up straighter. Current weapons production: 2 million small arms per month, operating at peacetime levels. We can increase this to 50 million per month within 60 days. Vehicle production can increase by 3,000%. Ship construction by 1,200%. How? Asked the Russian colonel. Our factories are not designed for those numbers. No, sir, Minho smiled. But our people are. Every major manufacturing center has hidden capacity. Every civilian workshop can produce military components. Every garage has the tools to build weapons. Admiral Lee walked to the window that looked out over Seoul. Even through the thick glass, he could see people going about their daily lives. Shopping, working, taking their children to school. They think we are weak because we live normal lives, he said quietly. They do not understand that normal human life includes being ready for war at any moment. The Devourer Advance Force will arrive in 6 months, Colonel Nam reported. Intelligence suggests 50,000 bioships, each the size of Manhattan Island. Recommendations? Admiral Lee asked. General So Young stood up. We let them come. We let them think they are facing a weak, divided species. We let them land on our worlds and walk into our cities. She smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. And then we show them what happens when you threaten 50 billion humans who have been waiting their whole lives for a real fight. What? About the Galactic Council? Asked the Chinese Air Marshal. Do we inform them of our true capabilities? Admiral Lee thought for a moment. No. Let them prepare their own defenses. When this is over, when the Devourers are running back to whatever hole they crawled out of, then we will have that conversation. He turned back to face the room. Issue the orders. Begin Phase 1 of Operation Homecoming. Every human in the solar system is now officially on active duty. And if the civilians panic? Asked a young officer. General So Young laughed, a sharp military sound. Son, have you ever met a Korean grandmother during wartime? Panic is the last thing we need to worry about. The meeting dispersed quickly after that. Officers hurried off to their commands, carrying orders that would transform human civilization from a peaceful collection of worlds into the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Outside, life continued as normal. People went to work, children attended school, families had dinner together. But now, hidden beneath the routine, 50 billion humans began the quiet, efficient process of preparing for war. The Galactic Council had made one critical error in their calculations. They had counted Earth's soldiers, but they had never asked how many soldiers Earth could make. The space near Pluto had always been quiet and cold. Today it became something else entirely. Captain Wu Jin Song watched his instruments from the bridge of the stealth frigate Incheon's Pride. His ship was small, only 200 meters long, and designed to be invisible. The hull absorbed radar and heat, making it nearly impossible to detect. Contact, whispered his sensor officer, a young woman named Hee Jin. Multiple bogies dropping out of hyperspace. The main screen lit up with impossible shapes. The Devourer scouting fleet looked nothing like the clean metal ships humans built. These vessels appeared organic, like giant diseased organs floating in space. Their surfaces pulsed and writhed as if they were alive. "Count?" Captain Song asked, quietly. 37 ships, sir. Sizes range from frigate class to— Jesus, sir, that big one is 12 kilometers long. Song studied the alien fleet through his binoculars. The ships moved wrong, flowing through space like swimming creatures, instead of following normal physics. Smaller craft, things that looked like flying intestines, began spreading out from the main group. "They are seeding the asteroid belt," reported Lieutenant Kyung-ho from the tactical station. "Deploying harvester organisms." Song watched in horror as the alien creatures touched down on asteroids and began to change them. Rock and ice transformed into more bioships, growing like cancer cells in fast-forward motion. "Sir," Hyojin said, her voice tight with fear, "at this rate of reproduction they will have 500 ships within 3 days." "Contact Earth Command," Song ordered. "Priority 1 transmission." Communications Officer Jun Seo shook his head. "Cannot get a clear signal, sir. The alien ships are jamming our frequencies." Song made a decision that surprised even himself. "Change course. Take us closer to the lead ship." "Sir?" his executive officer asked. "Our orders were to observe and report. Our orders were to gather." "Intelligence," Song corrected. "I intend to gather some very specific intelligence." The Inchin's pride moved silently through the void, slipping between the massive bioships like a minnow swimming past whales. Song could see details now that made his stomach turn. The ships were not just alive, they were aware. Eye-like organs tracked the movement of asteroids. Tentacles reached out to capture debris. They are building a forward base, he realized. This is not just a scouting mission. They plan to stay. The largest ship, the 12-kilometer monster, suddenly stopped moving. Smaller organisms began flowing out of it like blood from a wound. Each one was the size of a fighter jet and moved with predatory grace. "Sir, I think they detected us," Hyojin reported, her voice now openly scared. The screen showed dozens of the creature ships turning toward their position. Whatever stealth technology Earth had developed, these aliens had already figured out how to see through it. "All hands, battle stations," Song announced calmly. "Prepare for engagement." His crew looked at him like he had lost his mind. The Inchins. Pride was a reconnaissance ship. It carried enough weapons to fight off pirates, not alien monsters the size of cities. "Sir, respectfully, we cannot win this fight," said his executive officer. "No," Song agreed. "But we can make it expensive." The first wave of alien fighters reached them like a cloud of angry insects. The Inchin's pride opened fire with everything it had: particle beams, missile pods, point defense guns. Several of the creatures exploded in fountains of greenish blood, but more kept coming. "Hull breach on Deck 3, reported Damage Control Chief Min Jun. "Atmospheric pressure dropping." "Seal it off," Song ordered. He was studying the tactical display. "Looking for something specific. Sir, enemy fighters are attaching to our hull," Jun Seo called out. "I can hear them trying to burn through." Song found what he was looking for. The largest bioship was moving closer, probably curious about these strange metal creatures that dared to fight back. "All hands, abandon ship," he announced over the intercom. "This is not a drill. All personnel to escape pods immediately." "Sir, what about you?" asked Hyejin. "Someone needs to fly the ship," Song replied. "Go. That is an order." His crew hesitated for a moment, but military discipline won out. Within minutes, escape pods were launching from the frigate, scattering in different directions. Most of the Alien fighters chased after them, leaving Song alone with his ship. "Well," he said to the empty bridge, "let us see how curious you really are." He turned the Inchin's Pride directly toward the massive bio-ship and pushed the engines to maximum power. The frigate accelerated like a bullet, racing through space toward its target. The alien ship tried to turn away, but it was too big and too close. Song watched the writhing surface grow larger and larger on his screen until individual organs were visible. "For Earth," he said quietly, and activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. The Incheon's Pride struck the bio-ship at nearly 30% of light speed. The impact alone would have been devastating, but the nuclear reactor core detonated. At the same instant, the explosion vaporized both ships in a flash of white light that could be seen from Mars. But something else happened that Song could never have expected. The moment the bio-ship died, every other alien vessel in the fleet suddenly stopped what it was doing. They floated motionless in space like a computer that had crashed. Then, from across the void, came a sound that no human had ever heard before. It was transmitted on every frequency at once: radio, quantum, even gravity waves. The sound was like screaming and singing and laughing all mixed together. On Mars Defense Station, Commander Yoonji Kwon listened to the alien transmission with growing amazement. Her xenolinguistics team worked frantically to translate the message. "What are they saying?" she asked. The lead linguist, Dr. Soo-Jin Park, looked up from her instruments with confusion on her face. "Ma'am, this is unexpected. The transmission contains emotional content we have never seen before." "Explain." The closest translation would be, "What was that? How did they do that? Why did they do that? That was not supposed to happen. Query, query, query." Commander Kwon stared at the tactical display showing the aftermath of Song's sacrifice. The alien fleet was still motionless, apparently trying to process what had just occurred. They have never encountered a suicide attack before, she realized. "More than that, ma'am," Dr. Park continued, listening to the transmissions. "They are confused. The concept of individual sacrifice for group benefit does not exist in their hive mind. They literally cannot understand why Captain Song did what he did." Kwon smiled grimly as she began composing her report to Earth Command. "Then they are about to get a very educational experience." The alien fleet eventually resumed movement, but something had changed. Their formations were looser, more cautious. They moved like predators who had suddenly discovered that their prey might bite back. More importantly, the psychic death scream of their ship had been transmitted back to the main Devourer fleet. Somewhere in deep space, millions of bio-ships received the message that these new creatures, these humans, fought in ways that made no sense. The war had begun with a single ship and a single man who chose to die rather than retreat. The Devourers had expected easy prey. Instead, they found something that would haunt their hive mind for the rest of the conflict. They found humans who would rather die fighting than live in defeat, and for creatures bred only to consume and survive, that was the most terrifying discovery of all. The crystal chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with urgent activity. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were rare, but the news from the Outer Rim had shaken every species to their core. Council leader Kelleth stood before the great display, his reptilian features twisted with confusion. The tactical readout showed the aftermath of Captain Song's sacrifice. Debris fields where 2 ships had been, scattered biomaterial floating in space like green snow. "Explain this again," he demanded of the intelligence officer. a thin luminary, being whose light flickered with nervousness. The human reconnaissance vessel deliberately collided with the largest Devourer bioship, the officer repeated. Both ships were completely destroyed. The explosion registered 2.3 megatons. Suicide attack, rumbled General Scarth from his seat. Desperate action from a desperate species. It means nothing. But Dr. Ye-Jin Ro, the human xenobiologist who had remained on Nexus Prime, stood up in the observation gallery. "May I speak, Honored Counsel?" Kelleth looked annoyed. "The human delegation has no voting rights. You were denied membership." "I am not here as a delegate," Ye-Jin replied calmly. "I am here as a scientist, presenting data that may be relevant to our mutual survival." The chamber fell quiet. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Proceed," Kelleth said reluctantly. Ye-Jin activated a small holographic projector, showing detailed scans of the destroyed bioship. The Devourer vessels are not simply ships. They are living organisms connected to a hive mind network. When Captain Song destroyed this creature, he did not just eliminate a single vessel. She pressed a control, and the display changed to show brain scan patterns. He traumatized an entire section of their collective consciousness. Our long-range sensors detected psychic feedback across their entire fleet. For 17 minutes, every Devourer ship in the system was paralyzed. "Impossible," declared the Queen of the Hive Mind Collective. "No single death can disrupt a proper hive network." "With respect, Your Majesty," Ye-Jin continued, "you underestimate the psychological impact. The Devourers have consumed 12 galaxies. They have never encountered a species that chooses death over retreat. The concept does not exist in their experience." She activated another display, showing intercepted alien communications. "Our translation teams have been analyzing their transmissions. The words most commonly used are query, undefined, and impossible. They are trying to update their understanding of how prey species behave." General Scarth leaned forward in his massive chair. "One ship, human scientist. One small ship against their mighty fleet. What difference can it make?" "Perhaps you should see what else we discovered," Ye-Jin replied. The display changed again, now showing detailed images of human colonies throughout the solar system. But these were not the peaceful settlements the Council had seen in previous reports. Luna's surface bristled with weapons emplacements. Every crater had been converted into a fortress. Solar collectors that should have powered civilian facilities were clearly designed to charge military-grade particle cannons. "This is Luna City," Ye-Jin explained. "Population 50 million. According to our previous reports, it was a mining and research colony." "What are all those weapon platforms?" asked a Luminari delegate. "Defense installations," Ye-Jin said simply, "built and maintained by the civilian population." The image changed to show Mars. Red sand covered vast complexes that looked nothing like farms or research stations. "Mars Agricultural Dome 7, she continued. "It grows food for 100,000 colonists. It also houses a complete military command center, 3 regiments of heavy armor, and enough ammunition to supply a planetary defense force." More images flowed across the display. Space stations that were clearly fortified. Asteroid mining facilities that looked more like military bases. Even small research outposts, bristling with hidden weapons. "I do not understand," admitted the Queen. "Why would farmers need military equipment?" "Because they are not just farmers," Ye-Jin replied. "Every human settlement serves a dual purpose. Every civilian has military training. Every colony can become a fortress within hours. She pressed another control, and the display showed personnel files. Meet Mrs. Sumin Park, age 78, resident of Luna City. Official occupation, greenhouse supervisor. Actual background, 30 years. In Korean Special Forces, expert in demolitions and urban warfare. Another file appeared. Jinwoo Choi, age 45, Mars Colony 7. Official job, water recycling engineer. Previous service, 15 years as a naval gunnery officer specializing in orbital bombardment coordination. File after file scrolled past, each showing the same pattern. Teachers who were former intelligence operatives. Shop owners who had commanded tank battalions. Children whose school projects included building communication networks and defensive positions. "This is madness," breathed a Vorthak general. "An entire species living as soldiers pretending to be civilians." "Not pretending," Ye Jin corrected. "They genuinely are civilians. They work normal jobs, raise families, pursue hobbies, but they are also always ready for war." Kelleth stared at the data streaming across the display. "How many of them have military training?" "All of them," Ye Jin said quietly. "Every human over the age of 16 has completed at least 2 years of mandatory military service. Most have continued training throughout their adult lives." The chamber erupted in confused chittering and clicking. Species that had dismissed humanity as weak were now seeing evidence of the most militarized civilization in galactic history. "But the numbers," protested General Scarth. "Your ambassador said 2.5 million active soldiers." "That is correct," Ye Jin agreed. 2.5 million full-time professional military personnel. But our total population with combat training is approximately 45 billion. The silence that followed was deafening. 45 billion, Kelleth repeated slowly. "You are telling us that humanity has 45 billion trained soldiers?" "I am telling you that humanity has 50 billion people, and 45 billion of them know how to fight." Ambassador Hyun-woo had been sitting quietly in the observation gallery, but now he stood up. "Honored. Council, I request permission to address the assembly." "Granted," Kelleth said, his voice barely above a whisper. Hyun-woo walked to the center of the chamber, just as he had weeks ago when humanity was denied membership in the Defense Pact. "When I stood here before, you asked what humanity could offer that you did not already have. I told you that you were counting wrong. Now you know what I meant." He gestured to the data still flowing across the display. "You have large armies of professional soldiers. We have an entire civilization that treats military service as a civic duty. You have impressive fleets commanded by career officers. We have merchant ships crewed by naval veterans." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "You asked what we could contribute to the galactic defense. The answer is simple. When the Devourers arrive at our worlds, they will not face armies. They will face entire populations of people who have been training for this fight their whole lives." "This is impossible," muttered a delegate. "No species can maintain such militarization without constant warfare." "You are correct," Hyun-woo replied. "We cannot maintain it through warfare. We maintain it through culture, through the understanding that freedom and safety are not gifts. They are responsibilities that every citizen must be prepared to defend." He paused, looking around the chamber at the alien faces staring at him. "You laughed at our tiny army. You should have asked about our large nation." The emergency session continued for hours after that, with intelligence reports flowing in from across human space. Every new piece of data painted the same picture. Humanity was not a peaceful species with a small military. They were a warrior species that had learned to live in peace while remaining always ready for war. By the time the session ended, 3 species had formally requested military advisors from Earth. 5 others had quietly opened diplomatic channels to discuss mutual defense arrangements. The Galactic Council was beginning to understand that they might have made a serious miscalculation about the small blue planet and its tiny army. But they would not truly comprehend their error until the real fighting began. The main Devourer fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a plague descending from the stars. 2 million bioships spread across the outer solar system, blotting out the stars with their writhing organic mass. General Boram Lee watched from her command bunker deep beneath Luna's surface. The facility had once been a mining station, but that was 40 years ago. Now it housed enough firepower to level a continent and communications equipment that could coordinate a planetary defense. Enemy. Count confirmed, reported her aide, Captain Sung-Ho Kim. 2.2 million vessels ranging from fighter class to mobile fortresses. The largest ships are over 20 kilometers in length. Boram studied the tactical display with the calm expression of someone who had been expecting this moment for decades. Around her, Luna Defense Command buzzed with quiet activity. Officers plotted firing solutions, while technicians monitored weapon systems hidden throughout the moon's surface. "Time to weapons range?" she asked. 6 hours at current approach speed, replied Major Jiwon Park from the tracking station. They are moving in a standard consumption formation. Scouts first, followed by harvesters, with the main battle group, providing cover. Standard for them. Perhaps, Boram murmured. Activate all defensive positions. Send the signal to begin Phase 1. Across Luna's surface, what had appeared to be mining equipment, solar collectors, and research stations began to transform. Camouflaged panels slid away to reveal massive weapons emplacements. Hidden elevators brought up missile launchers that had been buried for decades. In Crater 7, 16-year-old Private Chan Woo Park helped his grandmother, Mrs. Soo Min Park, calibrate the targeting system on their anti-ship railgun. The weapon was older than Chan Woo, but Mrs. Park had been maintaining it since before he was born. "Remember what I taught you," the elderly woman said as she checked the power coupling. "Lead your target by 3 degrees, account for Luna's rotation, and always fire twice." "Yes, grandmother," Chan Woo replied. At 16, he had already completed 2 years of mandatory military training. At 78, Mrs. Park was a veteran of 3 border conflicts and the Mars colonial wars. All across Luna, similar scenes played out. Families that had lived on the moon for generations took their positions at weapons they had built and maintained as part of their daily lives. Children too young to serve as gunners carried ammunition and operated communication systems. "First wave entering maximum range," Captain Kim reported. "Wait for it," Boram said quietly. The Devourer scouts approached Luna with casual confidence. Intelligence from their previous conquests indicated that moon-sized bodies typically offered minimal resistance. A few orbital platforms, perhaps. Some surface installations, nothing that couldn't be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. They were expecting a fight that would last minutes. "All stations, weapons free," Boram announced. "Light them up!" Luna erupted. Every crater that had been carved by asteroids over millions of years now blazed with weapons fire. Particle beams lanced out from hidden bunkers. Missile swarms launched from concealed silos. Railguns that had been disguised as mining equipment sent tungsten slugs racing toward their targets at significant fractions of light speed. The first wave of Devourer scouts simply vanished. One moment there were thousands of bioships approaching the moon. The next moment there was nothing but expanding clouds of vaporized organic matter. "Target the harvesters," Boram ordered. "Do not let them establish a foothold." The second wave of aliens had expected some resistance, but not this level of firepower. Their formations broke apart as ship after ship exploded under the concentrated fire from Luna's surface. In Sector 12, Lieutenant Haewon Kim led a team of civilian engineers in a desperate gambit. When a damaged Devourer destroyer crashed into the moon's surface, instead of avoiding it, they charged straight toward the wreckage. "Remember," Haewon told her team as they approached the alien ship, "these creatures think in terms of hive minds and collective action. They will not expect individual initiative." The bioship was still alive, its organic systems trying to repair the damage from Luna's defensive fire. Alien creatures began emerging from breach points in the hull, things that looked like a cross, between spiders and sharks, each one the size of a motorcycle. "Mining charges ready," reported engineer Tae-Young Lim, a former demolitions expert who had spent the last 20 years maintaining Luna's infrastructure. "Set them for maximum yield," Haewon ordered. "We are going to give these monsters indigestion." Her team moved through the alien ship like they were conducting a routine maintenance check. They planted explosives at critical structural points, disabled life support systems, and severed neural pathways that connected the ship to the Devourer hive mind. When the charges detonated, they did more than destroy the ship. They created a localized electromagnetic pulse that disrupted the coordination of every Devourer vessel within 100 kilometers. "Ma'am," Captain Kim called out from the command bunker, "the aliens are changing tactics. Main battle group moving to direct assault formation." Boram watched as the massive bioships began advancing on Luna in a coordinated attack. These were not scouts or harvesters. These were creatures designed for one purpose: destroying heavily. "Defended positions. Phase 2, she announced. "Activate the civilian defense grid." What happened next defied everything the Devourers thought they knew about warfare. Luna's population of 50 million people suddenly revealed themselves to be 50 million soldiers. Apartment buildings opened fire with concealed weapons. Shopping centers launched guided missiles. Even children's playgrounds sprouted anti-aircraft guns. Every family on Luna had been assigned a defensive position. Every building had been constructed with hidden firing ports. Every civilian vehicle could transform into a military transport within minutes. Mrs. Sumin Park and her grandson Chan Woo engaged a bioship the size of a city block. Their railgun punched holes through organic armor that should have been impenetrable. "Reload," Mrs. Park ordered calmly as alien fighters swarmed around their position. "And remember, aim for the nerve clusters." "How can you tell where the nerve clusters are, grandmother?" Chan Woo asked as he loaded another tungsten projectile. 40 years of hunting these things in my spare time," she replied, taking aim at another target. "I know exactly where to hurt them." The battle raged for 12 hours. Wave after wave of Devourer ships crashed against Luna's defenses like ocean waves against a stone cliff. But these waves broke and scattered, leaving only wreckage floating in space. By the end, Luna Defense Command counted 30,000 dead Devourers and only 200 human casualties. The aliens had lost nearly a tenth of their total fleet, trying to capture what they thought was a lightly defended moon. "Devourer fleet withdrawing," reported Captain Kim. They are pulling back to the outer system. Boram nodded, watching the tactical display as the surviving bioships retreated in obvious confusion. Damage report? Minimal, came the reply from stations across Luna's surface. Most of our weapon systems are operational. Ammunition reserves at 85%. All civilian areas secure. Casualties? 200 KIA, mostly from the boarding actions. Medical teams report another 500 wounded, but most will return to duty within days. Boram leaned back in her command chair, allowing herself a small smile. Around her, the Luna Defense Command was already preparing for the next assault. Weapons were being reloaded, targeting systems recalibrated, damage repaired. But the most remarkable thing was happening on the surface. As soon as the immediate danger passed, Luna's population went back to their normal lives. Children returned to school. Adults went back to work. Families sat down for dinner together. The only difference was that now their conversations included topics like ammunition expenditure and optimal firing solutions. "Sir," Captain Kim said quietly, "we are receiving transmissions from the Devourer fleet. Our linguists are working on translation." "What are they saying?" Kim looked up from his console with an expression of amazement. "Near as we can tell, sir, they are asking each other how 50 million farmers managed to kill 30,000 professional warriors." Boram chuckled. "Send a message back to Earth Command. Tell them Luna's harvest was particularly good this season." In space above the moon, the Devourer fleet licked its wounds and tried to understand what had gone wrong. They had attacked what appeared to be a civilian target and instead found themselves fighting the most heavily armed population they had ever encountered. For creatures that had conquered 12 galaxies, it was a deeply disturbing experience. They were about to discover that Luna had been just the beginning. News of Luna's victory spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of light. Quantum communication networks carried the impossible story to every civilized world. 50 million humans had defeated 200,000 Devourer ships and lived to tell about it. Captain Junseo Lim received the first coded transmission while his merchant vessel, Busan Trader, was docked at Kepler Station, a neutral trading post in the Vorthak border region. The message came through encrypted channels that were supposed to be known only to human intelligence services. "Captain," his communications officer whispered urgently, "you need to see this." The message was simple. "The small clawed ones fight, like void devils. Our generals lie about their weakness. We would join their war pack. Sub-Commander Thrak, Vorthak's 7th Fleet." Junseo stared at the transmission in amazement. Sub-Commander Thrak was a name he recognized from intelligence briefings, a mid-level Vorthak officer with a reputation for independent thinking and a hatred of his superior's political games. How did a Vorthak get access to our communication? "Codes?" asked Navigation Officer Min Jung-yu. "More importantly," Junseo replied, "how did he know to look for us?" The answer came in a second transmission, this one from a luminary energy being calling itself Zeph-Ra. "The Council speaks of human weakness while human warriors destroy entire fleets. We have watched your species for 3 cycles. Your strength is hidden beneath gentleness. We wish to learn." More messages followed throughout the day. Hive Queen splinter groups, refugee populations from conquered worlds, even scattered survivors. From the 12 galaxies the Devourers had already consumed, all of them had the same basic message. "We were told humans are weak. We have seen evidence that this is a lie. We want to fight beside you." Captain Junseo forwarded the transmissions to Earth Command and received new orders within hours. "Proceed with Operation Thunder Bridge. You are authorized to make contact with rebel factions and assess their potential for alliance. The operation began quietly. Human merchant ships like the Busan Trader were already present throughout neutral space, conducting routine trade. Now, they became recruitment centers for an underground resistance movement. At Kepler Station, Junseo arranged a meeting with Sub-Commander Thrak in a cargo bay that was officially being used to store agricultural supplies. The Vorthak officer arrived alone, wearing civilian clothes instead of his military uniform. "Human captain," Thrak said in heavily accented standard. "My warriors speak of Luna battle. They say your people fight with cunning and courage. My generals say this is impossible." "Your generals are correct," Junseo replied carefully. "It should have been impossible." Thrak's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. "Yes. This is why I come. Vorthak Empire has many warriors who are tired of being told what is impossible." The conversation continued for 2 hours, with Thrak explaining the political situation within the Vorthak military. Many officers were dissatisfied with the Empire's defensive strategy. They believed the Council was preparing to abandon the Outer Worlds to the Devourers rather than risk their core territories. "How many soldiers share your views?" Junseo asked. "Perhaps 2 million in my sector alone," Thrak admitted. "Veterans who have fought real wars, not parade ground exercises. They remember what it means to protect your people, not just follow orders." Similar meetings were taking place throughout neutral space. Human traders, diplomats, and tourists made contact, with dissidents from dozens of species. The pattern was always the same: frustration with their government's defeatist attitudes and a desire to actually fight the Devourers instead of just preparing to run away. On Mars, Master Sergeant Kyung-ho Bae received orders that surprised even his veteran instincts. Establish a training facility for alien volunteers, but keep it completely secret from the Galactic Council. "Sir," he said to Admiral Tae-Jin Lee during their secured communication, "are we sure about this? Training alien rebels could be seen as an act of war by their governments." "Sergeant," the Admiral replied, "their governments have already written them off as expendable. We are simply giving them a chance to make their deaths count for something." The training facility was established in an abandoned mining complex in Mars's southern hemisphere. Officially, it was listed as a cultural exchange program for studying interspecies cooperation. The first volunteers arrived within 2 weeks. 50 Vorthak soldiers, 30 Luminary energy constructs, and 24 members of minor species that most humans had never heard of. Kyung-ho watched them disembark from their transport with a mixture of curiosity and concern. These were supposedly the elite warriors of their respective species, but they moved like civilians trying to play soldier. "Attention!" he barked in Standard, a language all military personnel were required to learn. "Form up for inspection." What followed was embarrassing. The Vorthak, despite their fearsome appearance, moved in rigid formations that offered no flexibility for changing conditions. The luminary drifted in loose clusters, with no apparent chain of command. The smaller species seemed to be waiting for someone else to tell them what to do. "Sir," whispered his assistant, Lieutenant Da-hee Choi, "I think we have our work cut out for us." The training began with basic concepts that every human child learned in school: individual initiative, distributed command, and the importance of completing the mission even when communications were cut. In human military doctrine, Kyung-ho explained to his mixed species class, every soldier is expected to think. Not just follow orders, but understand the purpose of those orders and be ready to adapt when circumstances change. A Vorthak captain named Gorth raised his clawed hand. What if orders from superior conflict with tactical situation? Then you evaluate which course of action best serves the mission, Kyung-ho replied. Orders are guidance, not suicide pacts. The alien students looked at each other with expressions of shock. In their military traditions, questioning orders, even obviously wrong orders, was the equivalent of treason. This is difficult concept, admitted a luminary entity named Vel-Ka. Our species believes in harmony of thought. Individual decisions create chaos. Individual decisions create flexibility, Kyung-ho corrected. Watch this. He divided the class into two groups and presented them with a simple tactical problem. Capture a fortified position with limited resources. The first group was told to follow standard galactic military doctrine, mass assault with overwhelming force. The second group was given human training, identify weak points, use deception, coordinate small unit actions, and adapt to changing conditions. The results were dramatic. The standard doctrine group suffered 60% casualties and failed to take their objective. The human doctrine group completed the mission with 0 casualties and captured their target in half the expected time. How? Asked Gorth, staring at the simulation results. You learned to think like humans, Kyung-ho explained. You stopped trying to overwhelm the enemy and started trying to outsmart them. Word of the training program spread through underground networks across the galaxy. More volunteers arrived every week, and not just military personnel. Scientists, engineers, medics, and civilians who simply wanted to learn how humans had managed to defeat creatures that had conquered 12 galaxies. The most surprising volunteer was a hive queen named Zix-Ka, who had broken away from the main collective after witnessing Luna's defense. My species believes individual thought is disease, she explained through a translation device. But individual thought seems to make humans very effective at warfare. I wish to understand this paradox. Training a creature designed for hive mind, thinking to act independently, was one of the strangest challenges Kyung-ho had ever faced. But after 6 weeks of intensive work, Zix-Ka and her small group of followers were operating with an efficiency that amazed their instructors. It is liberating, she reported during one exercise, to make decisions without waiting for consensus, to act without approval from central authority. I begin to understand why humans are so unpredictable. By the time the Devourer main fleet was ready for their assault on Earth, the galaxy had changed in ways the Galactic Council never expected. Rebel factions armed with human weapons and trained in human tactics were operating throughout dozens of star systems. More importantly, these rebels were no longer fighting to delay the inevitable. They were fighting to win. The tide was turning, and the Devourers were about to discover that their easy conquest had become something much more dangerous, a real war against enemies who refused to give up. The apex queen of the Devourers had consumed 12 galaxies in her million-year lifetime. She had devoured civilizations that spanned thousands of worlds and eaten species that had ruled space for eons. But as her super fleet approached the EA, small blue world called Earth, she felt something she had never experienced before. Doubt. 2 million bioships darkened the space around Sol, a swarm so vast it could be seen from the outer planets. Each vessel was a living weapon, bred specifically for the conquest of fortified worlds. The smallest ships were the size of skyscrapers. The largest dwarfed entire cities. In the flagship's neural chamber, the Apex Queen extended her consciousness. across the fleet, feeling the thoughts and fears of her countless spawn. The defeat at Luna still echoed through the hive mind, like a wound that would not heal. Query: how did prey species destroy battle cluster? Pulsed through the collective consciousness. Error in intelligence data, came the response from her war spawn. Prey species more dangerous than calculated. The Apex Queen had studied the tactical reports from Luna with growing confusion. 50 million defenders had destroyed 30,000 Danzantasavor, her children with coordinated precision that should have been impossible for individual thinking creatures. New tactical approach required, she decided. Full power assault, no survivors. On Earth, President Na Young-song stood in the Blue House bunker, watching the tactical display that showed the approaching alien armada. Every screen in the command center displayed the same impossible numbers: 2 million enemy ships against Earth's few hundred orbital platforms. "Ma'am," reported Defense Minister Jae-sung Kim, "global defense networks are reporting ready status. All civilian populations have been relocated to hardened shelters." Na Young nodded, though everyone in the room knew the truth. Earth's orbital defenses were impressive, but they were not designed to stop an invasion force of this magnitude. The real battle would be fought on the surface, in the cities and towns where 50 billion humans waited with weapons they had been preparing to use their entire lives. "Addressed to the nation?" asked her aide. "Put me on every channel," Na Young replied. "Military, civilian, even emergency frequencies, everyone needs to hear this." Her image appeared on screens across Earth and throughout the solar system. In homes and bunkers, in military bases and shopping centers, humans paused in their preparations to listen to their leader. "My fellow citizens," she began, her voice calm despite the circumstances, "today we face an enemy that has destroyed civilizations, far larger and more powerful than our own. They expect us to surrender or die quickly." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "They do not understand that for humans, those are the same thing. We would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Today, we show the galaxy what that means." The first wave of devourer ships entered Earth's atmosphere expecting the usual pattern. Orbital bombardment would shatter the planet's defenses. Drop ships would land to harvest survivors, and within days the world would be stripped clean of all life. Instead, Earth's sky became a killing field. Every weather satellite in orbit revealed hidden weapons systems. What had appeared to be communication arrays were actually targeting computers for surface-based artillery. Even civilian GPS satellites began coordinating precision strikes against the descending bioships. Colonel Min Seo-an commanded Seoul's surface batteries from a bunker beneath the city's financial district. Her weapons were hidden inside office buildings, schools, and shopping centers, places the aliens would never expect to find military installations. "First wave entering atmosphere," reported her targeting officer. "Count shows 50,000 dropships supported by 200 capital vessels. Wait until they commit to their landing zones," Min Seo ordered. "Let them think they are succeeding." Across the city, hidden weapon emplacements tracked the descending aliens but held their fire. To orbital observers, Seoul appeared defenseless, just another city waiting to be harvested. The Devourer dropships landed in parks, parking lots, and open spaces throughout the metropolitan area. Thousands of alien creatures began emerging from their organic vessels, expecting to face panicked civilians and light resistance from local police forces. Instead, they found Private Eugene O. Eugene officially worked as a clerk at a convenience store in Gangnam. Unofficially, she was a former artillery specialist with 3 years of active duty and 5 years in the reserves. When the aliens landed in the plaza outside her store, she calmly activated the hidden weapon systems built into the building's infrastructure. "Control, this is Gangnam 7, she reported into her headset while serving a customer who had stopped by for snacks during the invasion. "Enemy landing zone secured. Beginning fire mission. The convenience store's delivery drones, which normally carried food to customers, had been modified to carry laser guidance systems for artillery strikes. Within minutes, precision-guided shells were falling on the alien landing zone with devastating accuracy. "Did you want a bag for those chips?" Yujin asked her customer, as explosions lit up the plaza outside. Similar scenes played out across the planet. The International Space Station revealed hidden weapons bays that launched kinetic bombardment rods. Commercial orbital platforms began functioning as fire support bases. Even civilian communication satellites started jamming Devourer coordination frequencies. The Apex Queen watched from her flagship as her carefully planned invasion dissolved into chaos. Her bioships were being destroyed by weapons fire that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Worse, her ground forces were being systematically eliminated by what appeared to be the planet's entire civilian population. Query: how do prey species coordinate defense without central command? Pulsed through the hive mind. Unknown, came the increasingly panicked responses. Every individual acts as warrior commander. Pattern does not match any known species behavior. The Queen decided on desperate measures. If the humans refused to be conquered conventionally, she would land her flagship directly on their home world and consume their leadership personally. The massive bioship, 12 kilometers of living weapon, began descending toward the Pacific Ocean near the Korean Peninsula. As it broke through the atmosphere, it faced the concentrated fire of every defensive installation on Earth. Admiral Sung-Min Park commanded the Korean Navy's hidden submarine fleet from his flagship, the KSS Dokdo. For 40 years, the vessel had been disguised as a research ship studying ocean currents. In reality, it was the command center for 200 nuclear submarines hidden throughout the Pacific. "All boats, this is Neptune Base," he transmitted on encrypted channels. "Primary, target is descending to Grid 77, weapons free." What had appeared to be fishing trawlers and cargo ships throughout the Pacific suddenly revealed their true nature. Missile compartments opened in vessels that were supposed to carry nothing more dangerous than frozen fish. Torpedoes launched from submarines that officially did not exist. The Apex Queen's flagship crashed into the Han River, its massive bulk crushing bridges and flooding entire districts. But the creature was still alive, still dangerous, and still commanding the remains of her fleet. "Boarding parties prepare for assault," announced Captain Ja-Hyun Kang over the tactical network. Her team consisted of Seoul police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical technicians, all of whom had extensive military training and access to weapons that would make most professional soldiers envious. The assault on the Apex Queen was the strangest battle in human military history. Her boarding parties moved through the bioship's organic corridors like they were conducting a routine emergency response. They used bolt cutters to sever neural pathways, fire axes to chop through vital organs, and medical equipment to poison the creature's bloodstream. "Remember," Captain Kang told her team as they approached the Queen's neural chamber, "this thing has conquered 12 galaxies. It expects us to be afraid." "Ma'am," replied paramedic Hyun-Soo Lee, a former Special Forces medic who now treated car accident victims. "I deal with Korean grandmothers during flu season. This thing doesn't scare me." The final confrontation took place in a chamber that pulsed with alien thoughts and reeked of biological processes humans were never meant to understand. The Apex Queen herself was a creature the size of a building, all tentacles and teeth and malevolent intelligence. She spoke directly into their minds, her thoughts like acid. "You cannot defeat me, small prey. I have consumed the thoughts of trillion creatures. I have eaten civilizations that spanned galaxies." Captain Kang stepped forward, carrying a device that looked like a cross between a medical scanner and a tactical nuclear weapon. "Maybe," she replied aloud, "but I bet you have never been examined by a Korean paramedic with a bad attitude and excellent training." The device was a neural disruptor, built from medical equipment and powered by the kind of portable fusion reactor that every human emergency vehicle carried as standard equipment. When it activated, the Apex Queen's screams could be heard across 3 star systems. The creature that had devoured 12 galaxies died on a hospital gurney in a repurposed emergency room, attended by medical professionals who treated her like any other trauma patient, professionally, efficiently, and without any particular emotional investment in the outcome.